Welcome back to No Huddle, everyone, and welcome to my Week 6 predictions. Already, we're about to be a third of the way through the season, and last week I went a putrid 6-8, just terrible. I've been getting worse and worse every week. That brings my season record to 48-30. Hopefully, in these 15 games that we got to predict, hopefully I can improve on that record. So let's just get started. Starting on Thursday Night Football, we got the Eagles going to New York to play, or actually going to New Jersey to play the New York Giants. The Eagles are coming off losing their first game of the season against the Broncos, while the Giants, they fell to a very underwhelming Saints team. But in terms of this game, I'm going to take Philly in this one. I think they're going to have a bounce-back performance. I just don't really trust the Giants, while their defense, I think, can be good. They weren't really good against New Orleans, and the Philly offense, if they can't really produce well in this game, if Saquon can have more than 15 carries and if A.J. Brown can actually have a good game, that'd be nice. But if the offense is still very static, then it's something to look at the Eagles now. I think the key players for this, I think it's going to be the offensive line for the Eagles because the Giants still do have a good defensive line, even though they didn't get to Spencer Rattler at all last week. If they're able to protect Jalen Hurts and make sure he's not sacked like 7 times, then I think it'll make his life a lot easier. He'll be able to scramble like he did against the Cowboys and against the Chiefs and all those teams when they were winning. And for the Giants, I think Cam Skadaboo is going to be key because, one, he needs to not have a turnover like he did last week against the Saints. But also, he needs to make Jackson Dart's life easy. Like, he needs to be able to carry the ball, be able to catch it out of the backfield. Because if Jackson Dart has to throw 40 times a game, then that just puts him in the hands of the Eagles' defense, and they'll be able to dominate him easily. But I think Philly gets a bounce-back win, improves to 5-1, and the Giants continue their free fall. And now to the second London game of the year, we got Denver against the New York Jets. Denver, like I said earlier, they came off of upsetting the Eagles in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, the Jets, they fell to 0-5 after getting obliterated by the Dallas Cowboys. International games are always really weird, as we saw the last 2 weeks with the Steelers and Browns games. So this one could be weird. It might not be like as high scoring as I think it would be, but I'm still gonna take Denver to win this one. The Jets are just a really bad team. Bo Nix is kind of turnover prone. He may give the Jets 1 or 2 attempts where like it couldn't be intercepted, but the Jets haven't had a single takeaway the entire year. So I don't really know. I think if Sean Payton is able to cook up a good game plan where Bo Nix just protects the ball, he doesn't have to go gunslingers, guns a-blazing, and just throw short passes, nothing too dangerous, then the Broncos are just going to easily dominate the game. And again, that stat of Justin Fields not winning a single game when the opponent scores 20 points, I think that's just going to appear again. I think the Broncos are going to get to like 25 points, and that's going to be way too much for the Jets to overcome. In terms of the key players, I think for the Broncos, it's going to be their defense because we saw in week 1 at least, and in week 4, I guess, that the Jets offense can score to a degree. So I think Nick Bonito, who I think is the leader for Defensive Player of the Year right now, he's going to be key. Like, if he's able to get to Justin Fields, not let him scramble a lot, then the Jets offense will basically look like they did in week 2 and just look completely dead. And for the Jets, I do think it's Breece Hall because I think if he's able to gash that Broncos defensive line, then it will make they'll make Justin Fields' job a lot easier. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I think the Broncos are going to get a key win to improve to 4-2 now in London. Now to the actual Sunday afternoon slate, we got a really, really hard matchup with the San Francisco 49ers visiting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Niners beat the Rams in a overtime thriller back on Thursday night. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers, they won on a thriller of their own against the Seahawks in Seattle. This is going to be a really tough game because I think both teams are really, really good. They're both sitting at 4-1. You could argue that these two are like 2 of the top 3 or even the top 2 of the NFC, but I'm going to take Tampa Bay in this one. And it is at home, which I think is a huge boost for them. But overall, I just think it's a matter of last week, Stafford and the Rams weren't able to convert on those key drives with Kyren Williams fumbling and then failing on the 4th down and not being able to take advantage of the key moments. I trust Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers a lot more just because they've actually proven that they can do it. Like, with the exception against the Eagles, they had 4 game-winning drives in their 4 wins. So I think that can repeat itself. I think Mac Jones, while he's going to play well, I think, get that connection with Kendrick Bourne and Christian McCaffrey going, I don't think he'll be able to outgun Baker Mayfield again, who we just saw was able to put up 38 points on what is a pretty decent Seattle defense. So I just think that Baker Mayfield's going to make the plays. I think he's going to be the player of the match once again. I think he's going to continue his MVP campaign. And in terms of the key players, I think for those 49ers, it is Christian McCaffrey, not in terms of the receiving game, but in terms of the running game. Tampa Bay is a really good rushing defense, so I'm not going to expect him to just start his good rushing season this week. But if he can make Mac Jones' job easier out of the backfield instead of forcing him to throw 40 times a game, then it's going to unlock a new level because I think it'll force Mac Jones to not have to make a bunch of hard throws. And for the Buccaneers, I think it's their defense. I think they have to force one or multiple turnovers because the Rams were not able to do that against San Francisco, and I think that reared their ugly head because they were able to dominate the time of possession. If Tampa Bay can take away some possessions or force 3 and outs, then that will make Baker's job easier, and they'll be one step ahead of the Niners at all time. But I think the Buccaneers win and improve to 5-1. Now we got another really hard matchup. We got Seattle against Jacksonville. Seattle's coming off of losing that thriller against Tampa Bay. Meanwhile, Jacksonville came back on Monday night against Kansas City to improve to 4-1. This is another really tough matchup, similar to the last game, just because both of these teams are really good in their own right. But I am going to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're riding high on that momentum. And overall, the only loss that they've had was to Jake Browning, which I'm ready to say that was basically a fluke. The Jaguars are such a well-rounded team. They have a really good running game with Travis Etienne and Liam Cohen-Skeen. Their defense has been forcing turnovers left and right. They forced at least 3 in every single game, with the exception of against Kansas City when they still got a pick 6. And overall, I just think they're better equipped. I just think they're more complete than the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a really, really good team because they can win by just outgunning you with Sam Darnold and JSN. But I just think that Jacksonville, with it being at home in Duval, I just think that they'll be able to execute more. I think the running game is going to control the game. And similar to how Tampa Bay was able to force a turnover out of Seattle, I think Jacksonville is going to be able to force maybe multiple turnovers, and it'll give them extra possessions. And Trevor Lawrence, we saw he looked like an elite quarterback last week. I think he'll continue that, and we'll finally start seeing a more elite Trevor Lawrence. And I think it'll start with this game where we start putting him in the higher tier of quarterbacks. But in terms of the key players, I think for the Seahawks, it is Sam Darnold because he was able to play extremely clean outside of that really unlucky interception at the very end. If he can play clean, similar to how Mahomes was, apart from that throw, like he needs to make sure he can't be unlucky, which I know is really hard to do. But if he can stay perfect, if he can stay clean, then that won't give the Jacksonville any more opportunities. And for Jacksonville, it is their defense. I think if they force multiple turnovers, it makes the Jacksonville's offense a lot easier. I think Travis Hunter's another key player on both sides of the ball, although I do think more as a receiver. I think they need to unlock him more as a receiver because apart from that one really big catch against Kansas City, he hasn't been as explosive as I thought he would be. But overall, I think Jacksonville's going to win, and I expect this to be a really good game. Now we got the Chargers playing against the Dolphins. The Chargers are coming off a brutal loss against the Commanders. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, they lost in a choking fashion to the Panthers. This is a more boring game compared to the other two, but I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. They are depleted, but I just don't trust the Dolphins now. Like, we saw improvement with the first 4 weeks, then we saw them fall to the Panthers. I just don't really know what I'm going to see from them. They're just incredibly inconsistent. And while the Chargers, they're extremely depleted as well. Like, they really have no running backs. All they have is good receivers, like with Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston. I still think they'll be able to do enough. I think they're going to cook up a game plan where Herbert's going to once again have to throw a bunch of underneath passes. But I like the Commanders' defense a lot more than the Dolphins' defense, so I don't think the Dolphins are going to give Herbert that much trouble. The key players for the Chargers, it's Hassan Haskins, who I believe is their third-string running back with Amarian Hampton now in IR, and Najee Harris's Achilles is obviously dead. Hassan has to step up some sort of the running game. Does he have to average 6 yards a carry? No, but he can't be a guy that only averages like 2 and it forces Herbert to throw like 45 times a game and he's going to get hit a bunch. I think if he can produce slightly well, if like average 3.5 yards a carry, then it'll put Herbert's health in a lot safer place. And for the Dolphins, it is their defensive line. They have to take advantage of that really bad Chargers offensive line, hit Herbert, not injure him, but like just make him uncomfortable, and maybe that will force the possessions to end earlier, and then Tua can cook up with that offense of Darren Waller and Jalen Waddle. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I think the Chargers get their first win in 3 weeks. Now we got the Rams going up against the Baltimore Ravens. The Rams lost in heartbreaking fashion on Thursday night to the San Francisco 49ers. Meanwhile, the Ravens got absolutely obliterated 44-10 at the hands of the Houston Texans. I'm actually going to go to this game. I'm going to be in Baltimore. I bought these tickets when Lamar was still healthy, so yeah, it's really big luck on my part. But I'm going to take the Rams in this one. I don't really know what to say anymore. Cooper Rush is going to play. They didn't bench him or anything. They didn't sign a quarterback. Cooper Rush sucks. We already know that. He might throw more than one interception, but even if he doesn't, the Ravens defense is just terrible. We already know that. Odafe Oweh got traded. They're still injured. They're still bad. They've allowed 37 or more points in every single game except for week 2 when they played the Cleveland Browns, and we already know how lackluster their offense is. But the Rams offense is just way more explosive. They were able to basically do almost whatever they wanted on a really good San Francisco defense, or at least a lot better than Baltimore defense. And Matthew Stafford was incredible. Puka Nacua was good. Devontae Adams was good. Kyren Williams was good outside of the fumbles. If it weren't for the turnovers, the Rams would have won that game. So I think the Rams are going to dominate this game, have multiple points. They might put up 40. And the key players, starting with Baltimore, I'm just going to go with Derrick Henry once again. He's looking completely washed, but again, the only way that Baltimore is going to be able to win this with that terrible defense, even if they allow 35, Derrick Henry has to turn back the clock and run 33 times for 200 yards, basically have a Rico Dowdle performance last week, and hope they can just carry the Ravens to the victory, which I don't think they can. And for the Rams, it's just Puka Nacua and the receiving core, because one explosive play, and I think they can take all the air out of the Baltimore Stadium and then just quickly dominate for the rest there, which I think is going to happen. I think the Rams are going to get a bounce-back win, and for the Ravens, they better pray that Lamar comes back soon. And now we got the Cardinals facing against the Indianapolis Colts. The Cardinals are coming off the biggest choke of the entire year, losing to the Titans. Meanwhile, the Colts, they had a much easier game dominating against the Raiders. This is a pretty straightforward result. I think the Colts are going to win this one. It's at home. I don't like the Cardinals anymore, really. I had them winning. I had them finishing 3rd in their division on my preseason video, but now they look clearly like the worst team in the NFC West, even though I think they might even be the healthiest. But the Colts are just the way better team. They have the better offense. They have the better running back. They have the better quarterback, the better coaching, the better former Eagles coordinator, the better defense. I just don't trust Kyler Murray at all. I saw some reports they could. I don't think they're going to bench him. I don't even know who the backup is. But Kyler Murray has just been extremely underwhelming this season. He's been way, way worse than Daniel Jones, and I think this is going to be a matter of that. The key players, it is Kyler Murray for the Cardinals, just because he needs to turn back the clock into that 2021 version where he was explosive. He was making elusive runs. He was throwing dimes downfield to DeAndre Hopkins, in this case, Marvin Harrison Jr. If we see that version, then maybe we can see the Cardinals making some heroic plays down the stretch. But for the Colts, it is Jonathan Taylor. If he can carry the ball 25 times and get over 100 yards, then the Cardinals won't even have the chance, because Jonathan Taylor is going to be able to gash that defensive line and just dominate the time possession, and the Colts will just have a lead before the Cardinals can blink. I think the Cardinals are they're getting exposed in real time, and for the Colts, I think they continue this really magical run. And now we got the Cowboys going into Carolina to play the Panthers. The Cowboys did a demolition job of the Jets in New Jersey. Meanwhile, the Carolina Panthers were able to come back from down 17-0 against the Miami Dolphins. It was a nice win for the Panthers, but I do think that one-game winning streak is going to end. I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys, just because they have a way better offense. The Panthers' defense was still not good, apart from against the run, which I do think Javonte Williams is going to be able to fix. But Dak Prescott's playing at a borderline MVP level, and that's without CeeDee Lamb. So even with Jake Ferguson, Javonte Williams, and George Pickens, I think they're going to be able to score a bunch of points. And also, Bryce Young just has those patented plays where he's going to have one of the dumbest turnovers that you'll ever see a quarterback make, and then he'll start playing like an adequate quarterback after. So those turnovers always come at the worst possible spot, because Dak Prescott's not going to forgive you. If you have a really bad turnover and you set the Cowboys up in the red zone, you're going to give up 7 at that point. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Cowboys defense is going to force some bad decisions out of Bryce Young, and Dak Prescott's going to take advantage. I think it's going to be similar to the Jets game last week, where the Panthers get some points, but it's going to be in garbage time. The key players, I think it is Javonte Williams for the Cowboys, because if they do run, if the Dolphins, or if the Cowboys run like the Dolphins last week, then it will make Dak's job a lot harder, just because Achane ran for like 1.8 yards per carry, and that makes any quarterback's life harder. But I do think he's going to do a lot better. I think the Cowboys are going to block a lot better than the Dolphins, and the offense of the Dallas is just a lot more trustworthy than Miami's. And for the Panthers, it is Bryce Young. If he can have one aberration game where he doesn't have one of the stupidest turnovers of all time, then who knows? Maybe they keep Dallas off the field. They force Dak Prescott to sit on the bench, not warm up, not get hot. And maybe they dominate with Rico Dowdle in the revenge game and then they win. It's a bit of a stretch. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Dallas is going to get another win and improve to a winning record. Now, in AFC North matchup, we got the Browns going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Browns are coming off a loss in London against Minnesota. Meanwhile, the Steelers are on a bye, but the last time we saw them, they also prevailed against Minnesota in Dublin, actually. AFC North games are always really hard. This could be a really unpredictable result, but I'm still going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this one. I just think they're the better team. They benched Joe Flacco, obviously. Dylan Gabriel's going to get the start. Who knows? Shedeur Sanders might come in at this point. But it's just a matter of the Steelers' offense, or the Steelers are just the more consistent team. They're probably the most consistent team in this entire division. Aaron Rodgers is not going to be MVP level, but he's going to be adequate. He's going to be a nice game manager. Kenneth Gainwell, the last time we saw him with the Steelers running game, they were really good. I think DK Metcalf is going to have some explosive plays. And I just don't really trust the Browns and Quitshaw Judkins and Dylan Gabriel to make the plays. I think if they get to around 24 points, Pittsburgh does, then that's going to be enough to hold off the Browns. But the key players, I think it's going to be a battle of the two defensive player of the years. Because if Myles Garrett is able to be explosive enough to completely wreck the Steelers offense, because both of these quarterbacks are very susceptible to pressure. Like if you pressure both, because Aaron Rodgers is so old and Dylan Gabriel so young and small, I think if you're able to get pressure up the middle or up the edge on their blind side or really anywhere, it's gonna disrupt their game a lot. So whoever disrupts the game more, I think is going to have a way better chance of winning. But I think that TJ Watt is going to be able to disrupt the Browns' offense way more than Myles Garrett's going to be able to disrupt the Steelers' offense. That's why I think Pittsburgh is going to walk away with the win at home. And now, Jesus Christ, we have the battle of arguably the two worst teams in the NFL, the Titans versus the Raiders. The Titans are actually coming up against a win against the terrible Cardinals. And meanwhile, the Raiders got their backs blown out at the hands of the Colts 40-6. I don't even know what to do. This is a really hard game to pick just because both of these teams are just not good at all. But I'm going to take the Raiders in this one. I think that the Titans win was completely a fluke, in my opinion, just because the Cardinals just self-imploded so many times on so many levels. And I think that with it being at home, Ashton Genty's finally starting to heat up a little bit more. I think he'll be able to play a good game. Geno Smith, he might have his patented turnovers, but if he can have some decent plays, like even C.J. Stroud of the Texans was able to have decent plays against the Titans. So I think the Raiders will be able to have that. It's going to be a low-scoring game. This is going to be a boring game. I'm not going to want to watch any of this game. But the key players, I think it's Calvin Ridley for the Titans. If he had a really good game, which led Cam Ward to be able to have his first win, if they can build that connection, then Cam Ward will be able to string together more good performances. But it'll all be because of Calvin Ridley. And for the Raiders, like I mentioned earlier, it is Ashton Genty, because if he gets bottled up or he just doesn't have a lot of action, like Chip Kelly doesn't give him many carries, then Geno Smith's going to be forced to throw the ball, and we already know what that leads to. That just leads to a bunch of interceptions. So both of these guys need to be included in the game plan a lot, and I think this game could legit end like 2-0. And now we got the Bengals playing against the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau. Jesus Christ. The Bengals got dominated by another NFC North team, the Lions. 35-17. Meanwhile, the Packers, they were on a bye, but the last time we saw them, they tied to the Dallas Cowboys in a 40-40 thriller. This is very straightforward. Once again, I'm taking the Green Bay Packers. The Bengals just signed Joe Flacco, but that was a really bad idea, because I think the Packers, they're angry. I don't think that tie was a really good result for them, so I think they're going to be angry. They're going to be hungry for another win, and I think they're going to be able to feast on Joe Flacco with that really bad offensive line. Who knows? They might get some garbage time touchdowns just like they did last week against Detroit. But I think Micah Parsons is going to have a bounce-back game, maybe have multiple sacks. Jordan Love's going to play a lot better against a terrible Bengals defense. And again, not much to say. I think Green Bay is going to roll with the victory. But in terms of the key players, for Green Bay, it is Micah Parsons, because if he's able to be as explosive as we know that he is, he kind of got contained against Dallas, but he's not going to get contained against a really bad Bengals line. So I expect to see him pop out on my screen like I usually see him do. And for the Bengals, we need to see like a 250-yard performance from Jamar Chase, which not in garbage time, for the Bengals to actually win this game, which who knows, maybe Joe Flacco can just feed him 30 targets, but this game might get pretty ugly. Now we got the Patriots playing against the Saints in New Orleans. The Patriots are coming off a really good win against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Meanwhile, the Saints, they got their first win of the year against the New Jersey Giants. These two teams are, I think, on very different tiers. Like, both of them are pretty trash last year, but I'm going to take New England to win this one pretty easily. I think Drake May is turning into a borderline, maybe even top 10 quarterback in this league as in our eyes. And the Saints, like, they got a nice win. Like, the Giants are just a bad team, though. The Patriots are a lot better than them. Spencer Rattler hasn't been playing like the worst quarterback in the league, but I'm not going to say he's good by all means. The key players for this game, I think it is Christian Gonzalez and Rashid Shaheed. It's going to be that matchup just because Rashid Shaheed was able to turn the game around against the Giants last week with that 82-yard touchdown. So if Christian Gonzalez is able to contain those explosive plays, not let the momentum go to New Orleans side because it is in NOLA that game, if he's able to just contain him and hold the Saints to have a very vanilla offense, then they're not going to be able to produce much. And I think that the Drake May offense, which has been very efficient as of late, I think it's going to be able to produce enough points for them to get the win. And now to Sunday Night Football. We got the Lions playing against the Chiefs. This is going to be a really, really good game in my opinion. The Lions are coming off of destroying the Cincinnati Bengals. Meanwhile, the Chiefs choked a double-digit lead at the hands of the Jacksonville Jaguars, 31-28. The Chiefs were actually 2-3. Meanwhile, the Lions are 4-1. It's hard to see the Chiefs start 2-4 in the season, but I'm going to pick it anyway. I'm going to take Detroit just because I think they're the way more complete team. I think that their offense is very, very explosive. This is going to be a game where I think Detroit is going to score a lot of points. Spags is a really good coordinator, so I do expect him to have a decent game plan to at least contain some of the best Lions strengths, but I don't think that the Chiefs offense is going to do enough to be able to match them because I think that the Lions can get at least 35. Can the Chiefs get that against a pretty good Lions defense? Personally, I don't think so. But the key players, it is the Lions defense because I think they have to force the Chiefs to punt it so then the Lions always stay one step ahead of them, maybe even force some turnovers to make Jared Goff's life a lot easier. And for the Chiefs, it is all up to Patrick Mahomes. He's going to have to run for his life. He's going to have to throw dimes. He's going to have to throw it not in the direction of any of those Lions playmakers in the secondary Terry Arnold was out, but you still have to be careful with Brian Branch and stuff like that. And also, he has to take care of the ball just because if he turns the ball over, similar to what the Ravens did, then the Lions are just going to be able to get up by more than one score, and then the game's going to be over because they're not going to stop scoring by then. But it's going to be a close game. I think the Lions are going to pull it out, and the Chiefs, before they get Rice back, they're going to sit at 2-4 in my opinion. And to end the week, we got a Monday night doubleheader. I really don't know why they keep doing this stuff, but we got the Buffalo Bills against the Atlanta Falcons. The Bills got upset for their first loss of the season at the hands of New England Patriots. Meanwhile, the Falcons were on a bye, but the last time we saw them, they beat the Commanders 34-27. This is a really complicated game because I kind of wanted to pick the Falcons in this one just because they're coming off a win and a bye, and the Bills are coming off a loss, and they haven't looked as great as we are used to seeing the Bills. But I'm still going to take Buffalo. Truly because of the fact that I trust Josh Allen more than I trust Michael Penix. Michael Penix has played around, 7 games at the NFL level, and he's been very, very inconsistent. We've seen good flashes, we've seen really good flashes, but then really, really bad flashes. Like, this is still a team that scored 0 points against the Panthers not even a month ago. So I'm very wary of that. But I think that the Bills are going to come out angry. I think James Cook is going to have a bounce-back game. I think Josh Allen is going to be a lot more clean. I think the Bills are just going to have a more conservative game plan to not have really dumb turnovers. I think their discipline will be up. And I think that anger and the Falcons' just very inconsistent nature, I think is going to lead Buffalo to win. But the key players for the Falcons, it is Bijan, because if he's able to keep that Bills offense on the bench and dominate the game on his own, not force Michael Penix to make a bunch of key plays and show off his inconsistency, then the Falcons are going to be in a really good position. And for the Bills, it is Josh Allen, like it is usually. he has to be really safe with the ball. He's thrown an interception in his last 2 games. He has to be more clean. If he has a 0 turnover game and continues to be Josh Allen, as he always is, probably the best player in the NFL, then the Bills are going to have a very good chance to win, which I think is going to happen. And to end off the week, we got a battle of the number 2 or the top 2 picks of the 2024 draft. We got the Commanders against the Bears. We saw this game last year when it ended on a Hail Mary, but the Commanders are coming off a really convincing win against the Chargers. Meanwhile, the Bears, they were the last team on the bye, but they beat the Raiders on a last-second blocked field goal the last time we saw them. This is going to be a really interesting game, but I'm going to take the Commanders in this one just because I think I trust them more than I trust the Bears overall, just because I think they're the more experienced team, I guess. Like the Bears we've seen some inconsistencies with them. Like we haven't seen their offense be like all worldly. No, we haven't really seen the Commanders really either. But I think that the Commanders are a more established team than the Bears. Like the Bears are still very raw, while the Commanders are more proven, as we saw last year. I think Jaden Daniels, him being now another game removed of the injury, I think he's going to play a lot better. I think Bill Krosky-Merritt has established himself as the best running back. And I think that the defense, led by Von Miller, he's going to make Caleb Williams' life hard because Caleb Williams he's still getting sacked at a large rate. So I think Von Miller is going to contribute to that. Unless Rome Odunze can have another like career day similar to what he did like against the Cowboys or against the Lions, and they can have like that Burrow-Chase connection, I think the Bears are going to struggle to score just a lot of points similar to what they did against Dallas. But the key players, it is Bill Krosky-Merritt for the Commanders to make Jaden Daniels' life easier, because you don't want Jaden Daniels to throw 30 times and then run another 10, especially coming off an injury. You kind of want him to ease back into the intensity and not force him to be Superman every play. And for the Bears, it is Caleb Williams. If he's able to avoid the pressure, throw it quickly, come up with a game plan where he's not going to get hit a bunch, feed Rome, then they're going to be able to feast on that, what is pretty old Commanders defense. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to get to him a couple times, and I think that the Commanders are going to improve to what is now 4-2, I believe, and that will end off week 6. And that is it for my predictions. Should be a really fun week. We got a lot of really interesting matchups, and we're finally starting to filter out what are some good teams, great teams, bad teams, and terrible teams. Like I think we're finally starting to get a nice landscape of what we're going to see this NFL season, which is what makes this week so fun. But if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and please like the video, as any support is truly appreciated. And I'll see you guys next week at the end of week 6.